Conservancy kids, it's Nicole again, and today we are talking about desert pollinators. So some of our major desert pollinators are things like bees and hummingbirds, but there are some unknown pollinators that you may not think of. So flies are a type of pollinator. The doves that you see flying around, those are also pollinators, and they're really important to the survival of the Sonoran desert. We're just coming off of a beautiful spring season where everything was in bloom. We had some amazing rains, and those desert pollinators are what ensure that those plants are going to be able to reproduce for us next year and for all the animals that depend on them. So if you take a look over here, we have a lovely blooming creosote bush, and that is going to attract some of our desert pollinators. Those bees, those flies, even ants are a type of pollinator. The saguaro is one of the quintessential desert plants, and they depend on pollinators in order to survive. We talked a little bit about saguaros in some of our past newsletters, but saguaros take a really long time to grow. If you hold up your thumb, that's about the size of a saguaro after only 10 years. Think how tall they can get, up to 60 feet. So they really rely on pollinators to make sure that they can make future generations. Saguaros have a blooming season where you see those beautiful white flowers on the crest of the saguaros. During the day, the major pollinators are birds and doves and bees. And during the nighttime, bats will come and pollinate. Pollination is basically how plants reproduce. So inside flowers, there's things called pollen. That's that yellow stuff that if you rub a flower, you might get it on your finger. Well, those pieces of pollen contain the genetic DNA that can be passed on to the next generation. So when a bee rubs itself in that beautiful pollen, trying to get some nectar, trying to get some tasty treats, and then it flies onto the next flower, it deposits that genetic material to a new plant. But it's kind of a game of chance, because if you were out at all this spring, you saw there were tons of wildflowers, tons of flowers everywhere. So it's really a game of chance that these plants are hoping that their pollinators will go and find another plant of the same species so that they can reproduce. And when they do, when you find a match, that's going to produce fruit or seeds that will eventually drop or be eaten and deposited elsewhere and become the next generation of our plants that we will see in future years. Thanks for joining us, Conservancy kids. See you next time.